remember getting off of the plane and taking my first step on American soil. I remember taking my first breath of American air. I was excited and eager to start my life in America. I could not wait to start school and be something I could not be in Egypt. This was a place where dreams could come true. I was a 17-year-old Egyptian girl out on my own for the first time in my life. I had a couple $1,000s that my father gave me. I remember him hugging me and crying as he clutched me to his brown chest. I nestled my face into his shoulder and wept. My father was my rock. He was my place of comfort and source of strength. I had never seen him cry until that day. It broke my heart to see the man I adored cry. I almost could not board that plane. "Please be safe, daughter. This world is filled with monsters who hide behind smiles," my father said. I never really put stock in his words, not until I got much older. How could I? I was still a kid who had been sheltered my entire life. I had been protected by my father. His loving arms had always been around me. Now, for the first time, I would be beyond his reach. As I got off the plane and walked out of the terminal, there was a man from my country holding up a sign with my name on it. My father had arranged for me to stay in a boarding house of some sort. It was all women from my country who came to America for a better education and life. We all had lofty dreams and goals. Our school was paid for by our country. The goal was to get an education in America, then go back home and be an asset to our country. I waved at the man and smiled at him. "Daughter of Mahmud?" the man asked. His accent was so thick it was hard to understand his English. I knew he would not publicly speak Arabic to me. It was against the rules for us to speak Arabic in public. We needed to learn English and sound as native to this country as we could, so we were encouraged to always speak English. I nodded at him and smiled. He reminded me of one of my old uncles back home. He was tall, thin, and looked like an elder teenager, if that makes sense. "I am," I replied. He smiled and motioned for me to follow. The American airport was busy. It was crowded. People were traveling and going all over the world. I wondered what it would be like to be one of them. To have a destination to go to and explore it without a care in the world. This was my start on that path. I would get my education, make my father proud, and travel all over the world. I wanted to take my father to places I knew he wanted to go but could not afford. My father worked day and night to give me and my siblings a life that most in Egypt could not get. He worked extra to save up $2,000 to give me. I started to cry as I followed this man out of the busy airport and to the old black sedan that he had. He had cleared me with customs and immigration early. Egypt and many other countries paid the U.S. tons of money to be able to send students to America to learn. America was more than happy to take the money and push us through their immigration process. I turned and looked at the airport one last time as the man held the door open for me. Something told me not to get into that car. I'm not sure if it was the smile on that man's face or just some strange premonition of what was to come. As I sat in the car and the door closed, I felt like I was leaving my innocence behind. I could see myself still standing at the terminal, waving down to the me who was in the car leaving. My heart raced as the car sped away from the airport. Suddenly, I did not feel as safe and secure as I did in the airport. I guess the airport was the last remnants of my father's arms wrapped around me. They seemed they could not stretch any further. I was in a city called Phoenix. It was hot here. The weather was much like that in Egypt. Hot and sandy during the day, but cold at night. I don't think it ever was truly cold, just that the people here were so used to it being so hot that when it dropped down to the 80s and 70s, it seemed freezing. The city was beautiful. It was so much different than it was in Egypt. The streets looked clean and maintained. Men and women walked freely together. Everyone intermingled. There was no religious law here. It seemed loose and relaxed. Women jogged through parks in what looked like thin underwear. It was later that I understood that it was the Western version of a bathing suit. This was a strange new world for me. I was eager to get a job and maybe find a good Muslim husband here. I wanted to help my country. I felt I could help it better if I was first an American citizen. After about an hour of driving, we pulled into a driveway. The house was huge. It was much bigger than anything in my neighborhood in Egypt. My father was not rich. Our home was modest, but it was warm and filled with love. That's all I truly needed. Warmth and love. My father set the standard high. The driveway was long, and the house looked like a normal house. One would never know that several young foreign women stayed here, that we were striving for a better education to in turn help advance our country. As I got out of the car, I noticed a dark-skinned man standing by the door. He was giving one of the Egyptian men, who were here to look after us and protect us, a bunch of money. They smiled, laughed, and shook hands. The dark-skinned man turned and was beginning to walk down the driveway. He stopped to look me over. "Damn, baby," the dark-skinned man said. I felt uneasy. He stared at me like I was a piece of meat. He was a rabid, hungry dog ready to devour me. I studied him. He was very handsome. He dressed nicely and walked with an air of authority. He seemed dangerous, like a shark who smelt blood in the water. His eyes were as dark as his flesh, but they seemed evil. I have never experienced a man like him before. It was like looking into the eyes of a soldier that has seen far too much death. They were cold and emotionless. It seemed he could kill me just as easily as he could help me. Was this America? Were the people here this cold and detached from their humanity? I did not say anything to him. I looked down and hurried past him. My father told me not to look men in the eyes. Some men would take that as me being interested in them, or of being sexually immoral. I wanted nothing to do with a man such as that dark-skinned man. The dark-skinned man pointed at me as I approached the door, where a man from my country stood. The Egyptian man smiled and nodded. They had communicated something that I was not aware of. Whatever it was, it involved me. I expected the men from my country to protect us. Most of these men were ex-Egyptian soldiers or police. They were on our country's payroll to protect us while we were here. For some reason, I did not feel so protected. I thought about getting back into the car and asking to be driven back to the airport. But I knew my father risked so much for me to be here. He had worked so hard to save the money for me to be in this program, to have a life that was better than his. I missed my father already. I felt cold outside of his home and arms. Out of all the men in the world, I knew he was the only one I could trust with anything. He did not look at me as a sex object. In his eyes, I was the baby he held as my mother pushed me out. I would always be that baby in his loving eyes. I have yet to see that same love for me in the eyes of any other man. Maybe I was a naive fool to think that anyone would ever love me the way my father does. The Egyptian man opened the door for me and invited me into the house. Immediately, I felt like I was in a prison, that I stepped into a cage that I could not escape from. I was afraid.